Hello, everyone. Welcome to AMA number 34. We have Arthur Brock, co-founder, Eric Harris-Braun, co-founder, Mary Camacho, executive director, and myself, David Atkinson, commercial director. We'll start with some thank yous and announcements. So there's obviously a lot to cover today. But before we get into it, we'd like to send a huge thank you to our community organisers who met together in Lisbon earlier in the month, to the community team that's currently running our dev camp with 180 registrations. This is a community-driven event over 5 weeks where developers learn to build a basic Holochain application, or HApp, as we call it. And a big shout out to the more than 600 hosts from 54 countries that have their Holo Ports up and running, and to all of you out there creating content and participating in our forums. Before we jump into the questions you've asked, I want to hand over to Eric for a brief statement.
So over the past few days, there have been some rumors circulating about Mary's private life. In response to these rumors, I want to say simply that at Holo, we stand strongly and unwaveringly in support of Mary, and most importantly, of the fundamental right of all of our team members to a private life that's respected and honored, period.
Thanks, Eric. We know the responsibilities we hold, having raised money from thousands of people in more than 50 countries. And we understand there are vast differences in perception across these cultures. And for any of you who continue to struggle with this, I'm available to listen.
Yeah, and I just want to chime in also saying that the current executive team is really necessary in order for us to deliver this work. And I know that we have, all of us have a high degree of focus on this. And this is what it's going to take to actually bring the mission we've set out to do into reality. I want to also turn this over then to Mary right now to talk about some of the resets we're going through as an organization right now.
Great. Thanks, Arthur. So last week, we made a difficult and strategic decision to reduce the size of our team. We let go of 20 team members out of the 58 people here at Holo. This is a major reset, one that we believe sets us up to be focused first and foremost on delivering a hosting network with responsive apps and reaching our beta release, where the distributed cloud market we envisioned can come to life. During our Indiegogo campaign, ICO in the first months of development, it was necessary to have a team with the eye on the long-term future. We were a group of visionaries, change makers, evangelists. But as our dream becomes reality, it's increasingly important for us to focus on the results. For Holo, 2020 is about delivering on our promises. The first step in that is to admit we've not done so really in 2019. And the second step is to get the team put together that can deliver the results we want and need. The timing seems incongruous given the successes in the past few months. Holo Ports began delivering during January. They're behind schedule, but they're now in people's hands, and more are registered on the network every day. 180 people are registered on our dev camp, as David just said. And for the first time in January, our community members completely self-organized and delivered a hackathon, an event that gets people together to design and build Holochain apps. So this reset is our way of taking responsibility to refocus the organization and to set ourselves up for the full delivery of a functioning beta, a HApp store, and hApps to populate that HApp store, and of course, working Holo Ports. We're going to be sharing more about our development roadmap and deliverables publicly in the next few weeks. Thank you for your continued support as we make this important recalibration. So I'm going to just dive into one of the first questions that ties directly into what I'm talking about here. And that's about what a lot of you are asking us. When can we see the updated roadmap for 2020? So right now, we're working to translate our technical roadmap into a delivery and release roadmap this month. And we're going to share it with you fully in February. What we can say about what we're delivering in January and February is this. Right now, we're testing first a HoloPorts auto update to the latest version and register onto the Holo network. A lot of you are helping us with that process. We have a fix that's just been deployed to our test environment today that is addressing some of the registration process. And there may be a few more fixes that we're testing and releasing in the next few days to weeks to ensure everyone can get their port working on the Holo network. A lot of the HoloPorts are still being delivered to all of the host community. And I know some folks have seen some delays with customs or shipping, and we're addressing those. If you still have questions, we invite you to open tickets on our help desk. We're going to be opening up the HoloPort admin console and enabling hApps to be self-hosted. This is when a host runs the hApp from that they've configured to host from their own device. We're going to continue testing both the Holo Fuel hApp and the community's hApp. Those are going to be released separately. And then we're going to enable web user access to these two hosted hApps, thus testing the accessibility of distributed hApps by regular users of the internet. One further delivery in February will be a process by which our community can propose apps that they've built to be introduced into the closed alpha testnet. Now, we can't guarantee that an app that you propose will be selected, but we want to be able to relatively quickly invite participation from app developers out there in the community. The delivery schedule beyond what I've just described is being coordinated with our refocused product and delivery teams so that we can come back to you in February with clarity about how we will be proceeding from this closed alpha testnet to the full delivery of that functioning beta, the hApp store, and the hApps that are going to be in that hApp store. And really to have all of you participating in this fully functioning distributed hosting network. Back to you, David.
Thanks so much, Mary. So next question, which relates to this reset. How many people stay on the team? And what is the consequence of the reset for the current roadmap? Like, is there a new roadmap? Mary, I think I'll pass this one back to you.
Yeah, of course. So we have over 30 people still on the team. Some have moved to part-time. And as I shared just a few minutes ago, this reset was really about setting up our team to be streamlined and focused on delivery. We're restructuring the team to have a direct focus on customer, community delivery, and ensuring that the right flows of information are happening so that those of you who are involved in host testing and user testing, and hApp development, eventually also our hApp store provisioning, are getting your feedback directly into the development process, and we're able to deliver the value you need again and again. We just delivered for the first time here in January. This changes everything about how we're structured. In reducing the team, what we've done is mostly reduce in the areas of operations and growth in community where we felt we had basically staffed for where we thought we would be in the future, not where we are right now. And the end result really is that we're going to be more agile, we're going to be more responsive, and we're going to be more focused on delivering to you what we've been building.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So the next question is, what do we have to say to investors or other people who want to invest in this project? So I think I'll take this one. So say that no other project out there right now has this combination of vision for the future of the world, passion for the mission, breadth of community, and level of technical detail. Sorry, one second, just wait a second, Mum. And also the scale of ambition that we have for what is being built. We'd ask you all to grow with us. There you go. And I think we had some excitement behind me as well. Next, when will the panel for the alpha test be open?
I'll take that. So the panel, I think that everybody that's being asked about here is our HP admin is what we call it. It's the HoloPort administrative interface. And we're focused on getting a couple of fixes to the auto updates and the registration process out there before we open up that panel. That is because we don't really have a huge team to provide all the support on the Holo forum or in the help desk. So we're trying to make sure that we can remain responsive, able to analyze, prioritize the changes needed as we proceed through this test. So when we get more of the folks that have their Holo Ports in their hands registered on the network, then we're going to shift into opening up the HP admin, and we'll start testing out the settings on HP admin, and then we'll move to each app after that.
Great, thanks so much. So HP admin, just to be really clear for everyone, is the application that allows hosts to be able to control their hosting environment. Okay, next question. What are the latest updates for lib3h? Can you explain? Are you close? Eric,
I guess I'll take that, yeah. So up to now, we've been focusing on scaling Sim2H. Sim2H is our interim centralized switchboard solution that handles some of the tougher problems of network address translation and traversal and node discovery. And we're seeing really good progress with Sim2H. We've got thousands of instances working. We've demonstrated those in some of our tests. And we focused on that because this is absolutely key for supporting HoloPort delivery. The thing is that Sim2H is already using some of the parts of lib3h. For example, its messaging protocol. Sim2H is a switchboard for the lib3h protocol. It's right there in the code if you want to take a look at it and you're technically inclined. We've also been using Sim2H to prove out the sharding algorithms and do some of the work on how we're going to be doing that in the lib3h context for RRDHT, which is the distributed hash table implementation we're developing for lib3h. Additionally, in the context of Sim2H, we've learned a ton of stuff about how to most efficiently implement high-speed networking code in Rust, which is not an easy thing. And so all of that feeds directly into the development of lib3h. So this is a way of saying that lib3h development is going forward in the context of Sim2H development. Perhaps the most important thing, though, that just I've seen landing yesterday and the day before is tracing. Tracing is something I think I've mentioned before, and it's been a long time coming, but I've actually seen a trace going from one instance, one Holochain core instance, through the Sim2H server to another Holochain core instance and back again. And this is a crucial bit of instrumentation that's necessary for us to be able to understand what's going on in a distributed computing environment and be able to unravel the problems, the bugs that we have in our code, the things that don't work. So what does that mean? Are you close is the question that we have. Well, if what this means is, will we have finished all the parts of lib3h next month so that Sim2H becomes obsolete? The answer is probably not. But are we ready to focus, shift our focus to the harder parts of lib3h and doing that development? The answer is absolutely yes. And you'll start seeing a lot more output in the next month in the distributed networking arena.
Thanks so much, Eric. And the progress to lib3h comes up so often in the community channels and so often in Telegram. So it's great to have that response. Interesting one. Any companies contact us recently wanting to use the technology we're building? So jump on brief response about the types of users that we might have of our technology. So we look at this in a few different ways. We have developers, and we've talked about a number of developers that are currently registered, testing out and building on Holochain. We have people building applications or owning applications, which we call like app providers. They could be a spectrum of an individual, organizations, startups, enterprise. And then we also have hosts and people trying to build out the hosting ecosystem. In terms of people that come and say, hey, I really want to build an application on Holochain, we have inquiries like that every day. Although what's happening is at the moment, Holochain is still a test environment. So many of these organizations test, start building, get really excited, and then push the technical limits of where we are right now, and maybe pause. They might start building a centralized solution, or they might have their app just held until we start to push technical readiness and move to a more stable environment. So we have a lot of organizations in that holding pattern, and every day we have more inquiries of organizations really interested in understanding what Holochain has to offer. We also have organizations that have seen what we're doing in the distributed hosting world and want to partner with us on putting out different types of hosting network, or installing or bringing together devices in their particular area and trying to leverage the Holo technology to be able to do that. And there'll be a lot more to come, but obviously we need to launch the Holo network fully first. Okay, next question. So I'm interested in how quickly a Holochain app will be able to return search results, given there's no central database. So if, for example, you have an app like Medium with thousands of articles distributed across hundreds of thousands of devices, how do you do an efficient keyword search when there is no centralized index? Do you want to jump in with this?
Yeah, so first, just to eliminate confusion, I want to say that applications do have a DHT, a distributed hash table, which functions as their database for the application and returns results extremely quickly if you know what you're retrieving. In other words, it's a key value store, and if you have the keys for what you're retrieving, results come back very quickly. So the question sort of says there's no central database, but that's because what they're getting at is the issue of indexing. So if you don't know what you're looking for, if you don't know the key that you're trying to grab out of the DHT, then what this points to is a need for actually indexing content so that you can search for content by words that are within it, that kind of stuff, like keyword searching. And there's a few different approaches that you can take to this on Holochain, but I want to focus on this one approach because it actually leverages the features of Holochain rather than working around them. And so imagine like the question said, we're talking about an application that's like a Medium blog. So you're going to be posting blogs. And then what you can also do is create an adjacent app called Medium Indexer, for example. And then nodes who have the actual computing capacity, the storage, the bandwidth, and CPU power to volunteer as an index node can run that app alongside the regular Medium app and be providing indexing services. And what that means is that the index nodes, they build their own DHT that's a DHT index, where there are anchors, like a keyword becomes an anchor that you can find, you can grab very quickly for that word. You retrieve back using the get links, because our DHT it's a graphing DHT. So we have the ability to attach links to things. So you do a get links on the word, I don't know, blockchain. And you see what posts are talking about blockchain or whatever, right? And so you just do a get links on that keyword and you get back the nodes that actually have that. So you've turned the indexing into a DHT keyword, key value lookup. But it does take some additional indexing power to do that. And that's not necessarily the kind of thing that you would want to run on a cell phone as a really lightweight node. You might want to keep the blog app very lightweight for that usage. And what this actually taps into is the power of Holochain in building essentially microservices that can be composed and bridged together. So you have the blog app, which you use to publish and read posts, but you have the indexing app, which does all the keyword indexing and lets you query and find content in there. If you were doing something like a YouTube app, you'd want to do a similar kind of thing where there are nodes that you may want to participate in the system by watching or posting videos, but can't necessarily host videos, right? Like that you don't want to host that on a cell phone, for example, be streaming video content from your phone constantly as people are making requests for stuff. And you do use a similar kind of pattern. So this is a kind of pattern where you can build sort of paired applications where different nodes can play different roles. And then I know that then people ask, well, so what's the incentive for somebody to be an indexing node if you have to carry that extra burden? And the short answer is often data is the incentive, right? Like sometimes there are people doing analytics and that kind of stuff that actually want to be able to gather the data in one place and be able to do other analytics on it. And they may have their own reasons for providing that indexing power so that they actually get notified of all the posts and have the chance to index them and do other analytics in the process. But another thing that comes with the Holochain ecosystem is you can run the indexing app as a Holo hosted app, and there's a built-in revenue model for people for getting paid for the hosting power that they provide by running the indexer. So that's the quick answer for how you actually provide indexing power using kind of the patterns built into Holochain.
I want to just comment one quick thing on this too, which is the social innovation that comes from moving to the distributed world. And so there are some issues that show up, but that's actually a hugely powerful thing because it's a space for inventiveness and creativity that we think is actually extremely exciting.
Thanks so much, Art and Eric. Art, another one for you. How significant do you see Holo for the whole Holochain ecosystem? Do you think that the gap to reach regular users will be so big that if Holo doesn't succeed, Holochain has only a slim chance of getting adopted?
Well, for us, Holo is one of the things that lets you bridge to mainstream users, right? Like you can build Holochain apps and be able to bridge all the way to mainstream users just typing an address into their web browser. I do think that all of technology is moving toward this direction of being decentralized, of being able to take some of the middlemen out of the story. And so I think Holochain has good chances of being adopted whether or not Holo succeeds. Holo exists really for two reasons. One, that bridging to mainstream, so that if you write an app, you can reach all of the web audience world, not just the small audience of people who are ready to install some next-gen crypto app like Holochain. But the other thing is that it's a part of the business model of Holochain, that many open source infrastructure projects have challenges finding good business models to maintain the infrastructure. And what we're suggesting is that cloud hosting is, a $200 billion industry and at the moment and growing, and that being able to actually tap into that as part of the revenue model is part of what can sustain Holochain itself. I don't think Holochain requires it for adoption, but it may need it right now for revenue. And if that doesn't work out, then we'll, like other open source projects, we'll still be figuring out how to make revenue if it's not through Holo hosting. And
I want to add something to that. I think it also matters for all of the other folks that are writing hApps. When you ask about, is it critical to the business model? Well, the business model isn't just ours. The business model is also all of the other individuals, businesses, communities, organizations that are building distributed hApps. Are your users all ready to go to a distributed model? We don't hear that they are. We hear that there's a blend. And that blend is really why Holo is so important, because all of us are looking at this world of people used to using applications on the internet, but so used to browsers, and change takes time. People, we think of this like the internet revolution. It's been this huge thing. It's happened during our lifetimes. It happened very quickly, but it didn't all happen within the space of a year or 2 years or 3 years. It really happened over the space of a couple of decades. And you saw it happening at different paces in different countries around the world. And we're talking about a distributed system that really is global. So I think this really matters to all of the people who are building hApps out there. And we're talking about not just the kinds of applications that have you be able to transfer money, but all of the applications that people are using day in, day out on the internet today.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Thanks, Art and Mary. I mean, often in my conversations, the two things that come up are, one, that Holo is really helping people push their mindset or their ability to conceive of what a distributed app could look like and how it could work. And there's also something physical around the fact that Holo Ports are out in the world that starts getting people thinking about the decentralized world as possible and running on a device, not just this massive data store that will occupy, these huge servers or supercomputers out there. So really for people, like a lot of conversations in the world of energy, where people are starting to think about, well, how could this device still operate as an agent or a node in a distributed world? So fantastic for shifting people's minds as well. Okay, on to another question about applications, this one, peer-to-peer messaging. So I've seen an example of a peer-to-peer messaging app made with Holochain, but I'm still figuring out the trade-offs of using Holochain or other decentralized solutions. What are the advantages of using Holochain to build such an app compared, in terms of data privacy, for example, compared with Signal? Is it possible to have the same level of security? So, few questions, Eric, a few questions in there. Can I give this one to you?
Sure. So I'll jump in. I mean, this is a complicated question at a lot of levels, because what privacy and security means so much to different people. So on a technical level, Holochain is already encrypting the messages that travel between all nodes. And you can send direct messages between one node and the next node. And so you can develop a Holochain app in which all the communications between each node is completely private and will only ever go between those two nodes. But the thing is that Holochain is also about creating a social space, a distributed space, which is a peer-to-peer space in which data is shared and becomes public to that space. And so the thing that's interesting about Holochain is that as a solution in which each one of the Holochain applications is its own network, that segments and creates a private space in that context, a membrane, so to speak, for there to be privacy and security within the social context of that particular membrane. Because remember, if you send a message to somebody, it may be secure across the line, but it's only as secure as the other person's use of their phone and what they do and what their practices are. So in the end, it becomes a social reality with that group. And I think that the answer is that Holochain is a step forward into the world of making explicit that reality and blending that with technical solutions by having the highest level of networking security right now that we can do, and that we're completely committed to, but also really engaging in the conversations of what privacy and security means and what that means in a social context and what the social agreements are that are encoded into the applications that you use to leverage and build and create the kind of, in the end, safety that we're interested in when we talk about privacy and security in how we engage with each other, which is not only the technical question. So I went a little bit further, and I hope that's useful to you in hearing this answer, but I think it's one of the crucial things about Holochain. I don't know if, Arthur, you want to share any bit on top of that, or if we move on to the next question.
We're good.
We're good. Thank you. And for those of you, oh, got a little bit of echo there. For those of you listening, it's pretty consistent with your understanding, consistent theme for us that we will be reframing some of these issues toward around how computing works when we talk about agent-centric versus data-centric, or how we might think about identity, or as Eric just said, how we think about privacy and security. So for those of you keen to dive in and learn more, there are a bunch of resources available on our websites and in forums and community channels to go and have a look and see where some of this reframing may be really, really helpful to the things you're thinking about building. Okay, so an estimate now on when the Nano ports will be sent. Mary, do you have an estimate for us?
Sure. Well, I don't have a date for you guys right now, but Nanos require us to provide a final delivery of the disk image from our team to the manufacturer. So we've prioritized getting the Holo Ports and the HoloPort Plus devices through the first phase of delivery and testing. And the next choice that we have is to get the virtual machine configuration available for all of those who purchased a Nano, so that you can get out there and be testing inside of this host testnet. And then after that is when we're going to have the Nano image completed and sent over for final manufacturing and shipping. So that's the order of priority at this point.
All right, great, thank you. And then another question on the Nano. So for the HoloPort Nano, the question goes, I remember reading that you need to connect an external hard drive to do this. Is this correct? So will you jump in there?
Sure. Yes, that is correct. The Nanos do not have a lot of onboard storage. They have 16 gig of onboard storage and a small memory card kind of thing, enough to run the operating system and all that kind of stuff. But for the additional storage space that you'll want for hosting, you'll want to connect an external drive to one of the USB 3 port or USB ports. And the thing to note about it is that the external drive actually needs to have its own power supply. The reason for that is the Nanos are such a low power board that it's hard for them to drive a bunch of external things, a bunch of external, what's the word I'm looking for, components, accessories. And so ideally you get a hard drive that's an external drive that has its own power source that you can just stack the Nano right on top of and just plug the USB cable in. And we have information about this. This does take a little bit more setup in that you have to plug a USB drive in. So we'll have information about this in our forum and support documentation. And I think we're also going to provide some links to some of the kinds of models that have external power so that you don't necessarily have to go do your own research. The prices on those things change kind of frequently. So we haven't posted them yet since we haven't shipped the Nanos, but we'll provide those resources to people to try to help make it easy.
Great, thanks, Art. And I guess for those of you who are wondering why there aren't any questions about HoloPorts and HoloPort Pluses and everything going on with the hosting network right now, all of those questions are being answered at the Holo hosting forum, which is forum.holo.host, where all of our alpha testers are communicating and coordinating right now. So it's great to have no questions about those and good to have a couple of questions about the Nanos. Now about delivery and distribution. Mary, have we solved the problem of taxes for some countries?
Right. I think this is really about the duties, the customs that people have seen on some of their deliveries. So when we first shipped HoloPorts, our fulfillment team included, there's invoices that are included in the shipments. And on some of those invoices, the amounts were doubled, which caused some consternation and issues when they hit the borders and customs. These invoices have been corrected and they've been sent out through all the couriers, and most of them have been resolved. If you're still running into any issues regarding incorrect invoices, please open a ticket on our help desk by contacting help@holo.host.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Mary. I know there are a few questions about that over the last few weeks, and it's great to see the team resolve them. So thank you everyone for working really hard on that. Next question around hot tokens. So will hot tokens not exchanged for fuel still have utility?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So utility is interesting. It has a very specific definition for a token. While hot may be usable as a way to enter or exit the whole fuel currency ecosystem after it's been exchanged or after we've done a swap, the utility really is the direct purchase of a good or a service. And so once converted hot, once somebody has converted their hot, that utility is in the form of the holo fuel and not technically still in the hot token. Arthur, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Sure. I just want to say you're using the word utility not in the general English sense, but in the way that utility tokens are defined in the currency, in the crypto space.
Exactly.
Right. And so technically it's holo fuel that is the utility token because it's what's used to pay for the hosting power, right? The storage bandwidth and CPU of hosts. And the hot becomes the conversion mechanism for some period of time. That's going to be our primary way that people can come in and out of holo fuel. And so really what hot is an interface to the crypto markets. So if you want to be able to buy holo fuel with Bitcoin or ETH or something like that, you have to do that through hot. So in that sense, hot always has that conversion utility, and that it is the interface at the moment, or will be the interface for the crypto markets to access holo fuel.
And just to add to that too, if you look out across a lot of other projects that have an ERC20 token and also are building something else, a lot of those also convert into another type of token, another type of currency that's running inside of those systems as well. This is something that is a pattern I've seen in other projects, and I think that ours may be a little different in that the currency that we're converting to Holo Fuel is the different design.
Great. Thanks, guys. Next one. So are the HoloPort devices that have recently been shipped, or this first wave of shipment for the alpha test, are they considered collectible, rare, limited edition? And will they be identifiable, this batch, when compared to HoloPorts made in the future? Art?
Well, I don't know that they're going to become collectible, rare, limited edition type things. Like that's a weird thing to speculate on. Like maybe once Holochain takes over the world, that the first version of these things everybody will look back on nostalgically and have collector's value. I don't know. Who knows? But they certainly can be identified by model and serial number as far as which ones came out when. All of the devices are serialized. And then as far as how they compare to things coming out in the future, we actually don't know what hardware changes are to come, assuming that over time we'll evolve that. The most important thing in these models is really just having an LED that we could use to communicate status for people who don't have keyboard and mouse to connect in, or keyboard and monitor, I mean.
So the communities app, which we've talked about a little bit, Mary, when will this app be released, and will HoloPort users be the first to test it? And could you tell us a tiny bit about what the communities app actually is?
Sure. Well, I might have a few others talk about what it is exactly, because they've done more work on it than I have. But basically, in terms of release timing, the communities app it will be released as part of our closed alpha test. So it's going to be available first as a self-hosted app. That means that when we open up the HP admin, there's going to be apps that hosts can use, and only hosts can use at first, and that's going to be Holo Fuel to begin with, and then the second one will be the communities app. So that after a while, we'll do another release, and then it will be available to web users. So it's going to kind of progress out in terms of availability. I will say, however, that early versions of the communities app have been being tested in Holochain, distinct from the Holo releases. So if Eric or Arthur want to, pipe in here and give a little bit of commentary about the communities app, that would be probably great.
Sure. The communities app is a really cool app that gives you basically chat and community chat posts and message board ability. It's up on Holoscape for the technical users who can install that, and it's in the GitHub repo. So it's available for pre-alpha, if you want to call it, viewing and playing with, and we're excited about it. But this is where it spins out and is part of the Holo offering, and is part of the way in which Holo hosters can communicate with each other.
I want to say one other thing. A while back, we made an announcement about the acquisition of Hilo, and this is directly related to Hilo. The communities app is one where we were really using a lot of the code base that came out of the Hilo acquisition and converting some of their functionality into an app that could be immediately used and made accessible to the host community and then further to other communities. So I just want to say that this is part of that value, and it will continue to evolve.
Great. Thanks so much, Mary. All right, next question. So when will the algorithm that controls the release deposit of their accrual accounts be shared? Where will the hot holofuel be taken from to start these accounts? And the credit given to HoloPort hosts when they're able to earn credit, how will this be funded? So Art, yeah, I'm going to take this one.
So the first thing I would say about this is that I'm not sure we're going to make that algorithm public anytime soon. In some ways, there's advantages to keeping that private in the same way that Google's like PageRank algorithm is private because people try to game it otherwise. Our intention for it is that it's approximately comparable to that a host's credit limit would be approximately equal to their past 3 months of hosting earnings. But it has in the algorithm some anti-gaming characteristics to prevent the credit limit from being manipulated. So if you're not doing any weird gaming, then that would be a good rule of thumb. Now, as far as how it's funded, I think that question is coming from the perspective of thinking of a cryptocurrency as tokens that have to be minted and issued from somewhere and that kind of thing. And Holo Fuel is not a token-based currency. It is a mutual credit accounting ledger, essentially. And so what giving the hosts credit limits does, what it does is it allows them to spend into the negative up to their credit limit. And that is where the credits come from, is they have a negative balance that they have to earn back with their future hosting power. And so there's no other special place that the credits need to come from. They're funded literally by spending into the negative.
Great, thank you. Mary, question about HoloPorts. How many HoloPorts are currently added to the network? And when will the admin panel open?
Sure, we've answered some of this already, but I think never hurts to say more here. The hosts are really, the HoloPorts are being added and registered to the network every single day. We've got over 600 currently registered. That means they've been unboxed, turned on, auto updated, and registered onto the network with DNS. And Arthur, you can probably speak to a few of the other things that are happening during that authorization and registration process. But let me just finish a little bit here about what's happening and how many more are still out there register. We shipped over 1,500 HoloPorts in the last week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, starting at the end of December. And we're continuing to ship more every single week as people, some folks were on vacation. And so they waited to confirm addresses, to confirm what was going to be delivered. And so every week we're sending new batches out. And as those get delivered, we're supporting those folks getting registered. There have been a couple of bumps in the road, a couple of bugs. That's why we're calling this a closed alpha test. And so what we're doing right now is, today, even, we have a release that just went into our test environment that is one that helps with registration. There's some people who are stuck at one stage of the registration. This fix that's in test right now should help a whole lot of those people get through the rest of the registration process. There's probably a couple of other things. That's kind of what I was referring to when I was talking about our January and February releases that we're doing. And so we expect to see, another 500 to 1,000 or somewhere in that range, HoloPorts be getting onto the network over the course of the next couple of weeks. Did I miss part of the question?
No, that is, when will the admin panel open? No, that's great. Thanks, Mary.
We talked about that.
Exactly. Just going to jump here. One question that's been asked a lot recently is, why is Deadfalls being stripped down? And what is our proposed way to inform people about progression of Holochain development, lib3h, HoloPort troubleshootings, all of these kind of things? Mary and Art, can you guys, Mary, you would jump in, and then maybe Art after you?
Yeah, that'd be great. So we've had different communications through different stages of the organization. And we're shifting, as we talked about the reset, we're shifting from being an organization that was focused on building and trying to get out information about what we were building and make it visible to the community, especially to the app developer community who really needed to see what's changing in Holochain, because that's where it started. It was all about Holochain when we started. Over the course of the last few months, we started shifting that focus in the Deadfalls, and we started making it more and more about all the different things that were being built by the Holo Central team, or what we call our happy team. And so now, as we're moving into delivery, we're giving updates. Right now it's focused in our closed alpha environment, so it's on the Holo Forum. And as many of you know, the Holo Forum is a closed test environment and closed forum right now, it's open to invitation only to hosts. This will of course change because our tests will go from being a closed alpha into being an open alpha eventually. And so as that shifts, it will become a more broad distributed forum. We also have the Holochain forum where app developers are engaging in a fully open forum talking about what they can do. And a lot of the folks that are in the group that is the dev, I'm sorry, just went blank. Help, David, Arthur.
The dev group shows up on the Holochain forum an awful lot, and that's a great place to ask questions. So core devs actually do post and will be responding.
Sure. So anyway, those two places are the best place to be. But the focus, what I wanted to really say about communications is that the focus is shifting to what is it we're delivering and to which communities or groups of users are we delivering it to. And so we don't necessarily need just a single communication Deadfalls that's going to focus on Holochain. We're going to be talking about what is it that we're releasing? How does this change what we need tested? And how does that testing community get engaged with us as an organization more fully?
Great. Thank you, Mary. We're at time, everyone. So firstly, huge thanks to Art, Eric, and Mary for being here. A quick shout out to the events that we've got coming up at the moment. And if you want to know more about these events, you can go to the website holo.host/events. As we mentioned, we have the DevCamp 6 running at the moment, completely community organized, run and led. 180 registrations, very exciting. We had 60 people on the call today. We have a Holochain meetup in Berlin tomorrow, I believe. We also have Grace speaking at a blockchain and business meetup at Oracle on January the 27th, a HoloPort demo in Barcelona on the 29th, a Holochain meetup in New York on the 4th of February, and a HoloPort showcase in Brisbane on the 12th of February. So really, really active community at the moment. Please get involved in one of those events if you're in the location, or get in touch with our fantastic events team if you'd like to host a meetup or an event in your location. And that is it. So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you everyone for contributing, and see you next time.
Thanks everybody.